Now that we're able to track the key presses, we're also able to calculate and move our element around the page. And this we can do by conditions. So checking to see if key, and remember we're passing that value of key into our function, our handle function. I'm going to get rid of those console messages. So we're still passing in the value of key, and we're controlling which keys we're actually passing in. So checking to see if key equals left, and if it does, then we're going to take our box x, so this is why we had it with a global variable, where we can adjust the value of box x accordingly, and taking whatever the player speed is, and we know we set that at 100, we're going to update that value. And also moving it left, we see that we can update the square value. So whenever we're moving left, we're subtracting one of the values off of the square. So if we're at 1, and obviously we can't move past 1, but if we were at 2 and we moved left, then we would go to 1. And that's why moving left subtracts 1 off of the square value. Let's also do the opposite for right movement. So if we're going right, then this is what we want to happen. And this is essentially the opposite. So we're going to increment it by 1. And we'll do the vertical as well afterwards. So taking that value of box style, so remember that's still that global object where the player is, and setting the left value, and we could equal that to whatever the value of box x is, because this is where our controller value is, and we're going to update that style property for it. And it's as easy as that to create that type of movement. So now whenever I click left or I click right, we see that we've got the movement happening. So just we need to do the same thing now for our top and bottom, or up and down. So instead of right, let's take up, take our box y instead of x. We're still taking the player speed, and the player square, this one's going to be a little bit different. So we need to subtract the value of, and remember we have that dimensions of the board, so game box x, because x has a value of 8. If we subtract the value of 8, then that's going to move us up a line. So basically 19 would go to 11, 11 would go to 3. So that's exactly what we want. And we want to do the opposite for down. So if it's down, then we're going to increase by player speed. So that's still the 100. And we're going to increment by the value of gamebox x. And also let's output the value of player square so that we can actually see which square we're on. So let's see what happens. So now if I move left, I'm on 2. Down, I'm on 10, but it's not moving down, and that's because we've got to update the top property. But at least the calculations were working. So instead of left, we need to do top, and instead of box X, let's add in box. So now refresh and down, and I think I actually got those reversed. So this one should be up, and that one should be down, because of course we're increasing and decreasing. So try that one more time. So now if we go down, and this should be also reversed. So just a quick fix there, and you can see by the math there that it's not, it wasn't calculating it properly. So now when I click down, we should move to 9 and 10, 18, and we can go back to 10, 2, and so on. So we can move through all of the squares. And there's one thing that you might have just noticed, that I can actually go off of the grid. So we need to create some restrictions. So that we can do in the upcoming lesson. So for now, set up the movement of the element and also calculating of the square that we're on, so that make sure that it corresponds with the actual square that's red. And then coming up next, we'll add in the restrictions so that the player can't go out of our boundary area. So that's coming up next.